Welcome to another episode of Data Gurus. This is Sima Vasa, your host, and I'm joined today by Michalis Michael, who is the CEO and founder of DMR. Welcome.
Hello there. Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for joining me from across the pond. It's late Friday evening for you, so I appreciate it.
Oh, that's great. No problem.
I am excited to talk to you today. You have so much knowledge on a topic that everybody has been focused on recently with the advance of ChatGPT and having the democratization of AI. Give us a little bit of an understanding, if you don't mind, about where your perspective is on as a society regarding AI and where we are.
Okay, I can do that. But it's all happening really, really fast. And so I think everybody has questions about where we are and where we're going. So we differentiate when we think of AI between narrow AI and strong or general AI, or AGI is the acronym. And so narrow AI is something that a machine learning model does, which is very specific, like sentiment analysis or sentiment labeling text for sentiment. There are three classes of sentiment: positive, negative, neutral. Easy. It can take millions of posts in seconds, all labeled and presented nicely on a dashboard. That's narrow AI, and that's what my company does. Strong AI doesn't exist yet.
Okay.
And there's a definition from Alan Turing, which says strong AI will, something will qualify, a computer program or hardware will qualify a strong AI if a human has a conversation with it and does not realize that it's a computer, that the human will think it's a human, right? It's another human. That's Turing's definition from the 50s, but I don't think it applies anymore for strong AI. I think we nowadays think more of AI as a godlike capability. And I don't mean this in a religious context, but someone who is much more intelligent than a human. That's how we think of strong AI now. And there are three groups of people who are in this business. And I call them the optimists, the moderates, and the pessimists. But we can debate if that's really a good name. So the optimists, and I'm one of them, believe that we will have strong AI by the end of this decade.
Okay.
The moderates believe that we will have strong AI by the end of the century. And the pessimists say it will never happen. So there's no way a machine will have the same intuition, the same, abilities that the human brain has. So
let me ask you a question. Because I actually, when we spoke earlier, I kind of reversed the scale. I thought the optimist was that it's never going to happen, and the pessimist was it's going to happen in this decade, and the moderates are the moderates. But tell me your perspective, you being an optimist and saying, strong AI is going to happen in the next decade. Why is that an optimistic view for you?
So there's one a great point. Before and now, it's that there are certain conditions that need to be fulfilled for this to have a positive outcome, and these are for humans to have a consensus on what is the legal framework and what is the ethical framework, which we don't have. And that's why you may have seen in the news about a month ago, Elon Musk started a petition to pause, they call it the AI arms race. For some reason, they call it the arms race, to pause it for 6 months. It's a very specific petition. So they are asking, OpenAI, Google, whoever is involved, Microsoft, to pause so that humanity will come up with a legal and an ethical framework around AI that will protect humanity in the future. So the condition to be able to call myself an optimist is that before we have a runaway AI, which becomes millions of times more intelligent than a human at the singularity moment, which is defined exactly as that the moment a machine reaches human intelligence, then it continues to develop code for itself. And in the next few seconds is so many times smarter than a human. So it's a runaway scenario, and it needs to be well thought of. We can't just, leave it.
But your premise is that we will have these frameworks in place before we say strong AI will happen in the decade. I can live with that.
Exactly.
Right now it just feels like it's just a free for all for everybody, and there's no line in sight. And that regulation or those frameworks would have to happen on a global level, I would imagine.
Yes, absolutely. Governments and corporations need to agree that this is the case, so that we don't get to an ex machina or a Terminator scenario, which are very, very real. And some really smart people said so, like Stephen Hawking and, and all these academics that are, these are not idiots or dumb people. They know what they're talking about. And I agree with them. It's scary, and we should be scared, and we should get our act together before something happens that we didn't expect.
Right. Absolutely agree with you. And let me ask you this question. As you think about like AI being able to be as smart as humans, right? What do you think the probability of that actually is? There's a lot of things that we still need to factor in, but where are we in that continuum?
The same way the human brain is a sort of a black box, right? For us. We don't understand how the human brain operates. We understand the periphery, but not really. That's how probably AI will develop when it reaches that stage. And so I'm not sure exactly what synapses will link, how many millions of them, and how will they look like. But I know that the processing power is there.
Right.
And I know that the hardware and the software is there. So I can't say with absolute certainty that it will happen, to have exactly someone that has, intuition and empathy and maybe consciousness, who knows, to be conscious of oneself and talk about the sentient being. But I think it's possible, definitely possible, with the technology that exists today.
It's interesting because so much of how we take the world in is through our experiences. And to be able to think that a machine can be able to mimic, our responses based on all those cumulative experiences is fascinating. And we'll see what happens, right?
And not only mimic, right? At some point it will have its own, which are very different than ours, and it will be our boss.
That's true. And then I think about the animals. What's going to happen to all the non-humans, right?
There will be scratching their heads with their paws.
Like, what's happening here, guys? What happened to us? So, okay, let's talk about how you're using AI at your company. Just give us a brief background about DMR and what you guys focus on.
Yeah, so we've been developing custom machine learning models since 2012. So we spent many years in R&D, focused R&D, to develop technology that labels text, audio, and images in a very accurate way for certain variables that are needed in the market research data analytics world. So for marketers and customer experience managers and so on. And so that's what we call narrow AI. So you take some training data that have been created by humans. So humans will label manually for sentiment, positive, negative, or neutral towards a brand, for topics, whatever you want to, the machine to learn. And then you marry an algorithm, a machine learning algorithm, with the training data, which let's say is about soft drinks in the Vietnamese language.
Right.
And now you have a custom model that can label Vietnamese text with sentiment, and you can have another one that it can label Vietnamese text with topics around soft drinks. That's important in what we do, because for us, the labeling accuracy is very, very important, because we think, the proverbial garbage in, garbage out. So if the accuracy is not right, then all the decisions that a company might take could be not only useless, but maybe very, very risky for the company if the data is wrong, right? So if you go to Coca-Cola and say 60% of the posts in Vietnamese about Coca-Cola are negative, and if the accuracy is 50%, which then will mean that only 30% are negative, right? Totally different decisions will be taken, right? So we pay a lot of attention in committing to over 80% accuracy whenever we do a project, by running this proprietary and approach to creating a custom model that understands the context. In that case, in the example's case, the context is soft drinks.
Okay. And I like your thesis. So we've talked about the definition of kind of the market research space, which, was really the premise is that we're getting feedback from people that we've solicited, that have agreed to participate in either qualitative research or quantitative research. But, as we think about the expansion of the industry, companies like your company provides unsolicited feedback, and it's two sides of the coin, as you mentioned before. Talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, well, I have to say that I am, in this case, scratching my head with how slow the industry has taken up the unsolicited customer opinion, which comes from posts on social media, on blogs, on fora, on reviews like Amazon and all that. In my view, to use the coin analogy, a marketer or a customer experience manager is interested in customer opinion about their products and the competitors. But customer opinion has two sides. One is the solicited, which is you get by asking questions, surveys, and focus groups. That's what market researchers have been doing for 100 years now. Exactly 100 years since the Nielsen report was created. And then there's the unsolicited customer opinion, which is what people say online about brands without being asked. And I believe that the weight of importance of these two types of opinions should be at least 50-50. And at the moment, my sense is it's an arbitrary number, but I think companies are basing decisions using 90% solicited opinion, so survey and focus groups, and only 10% of the decisions are based on unsolicited, which comes from social media and so on.
And what is the challenge or the objection that you get when you present your ideas and your solutions typically?
A question which, if I had a cent every time I got it, I would be rich, is that usually comes from traditional market researchers, is how representative is your sample? And they mean the sample of posts that you gather from the internet. How representative is it? Because my survey, I chose 1,000 people randomly to represent, let's say, 350 million people in the US. And yours, how do you know? And this question is so wrong. It's wrong in two ways. The first mistake they make is that this is not a sample. Right. It's the universe of all the posts about a brand. Sure. And the second mistake is that the question is not right because in a social media context, we are more interested in how many people read it and get impacted by it rather than who wrote it. Even if there is one person, let's say that person is Barack Obama, right?
Yeah.
He has millions of followers.
Sure.
It's one person. How
Right.
representative is he? Zero. He's not representative at all. He was the president of the United States, right? He writes a post and 200 million people read it and they go do what he says, let's say.
Yes. Yeah.
Hypothetical, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So don't you want to know? Don't
Yeah.
you want to know what he said?
Right. Yes, of course. Yeah.
And don't you want to know the reach that he has?
Yeah.
So that's the kind of perspective and angle that we take when we look at social media posts. Who can be impacted? What is my negative sentiment, my positive sentiment? How do I compare with competition? And not only customer opinion, I want to add one more.
Sure.
There's also news, the news which is editorial, which it's not a customer who posts a news piece on the CNN website, but how many customers will read that piece of news and get impacted by it. So that's also another consideration that brands need to know what's out there, news or solicited customer opinion.
And when you factor in the news, or even let's say the post of Barack Obama, just break it down a little bit. Like, how do you actually track that? In my mind, it's just like, or is it all through machine learning and algorithms where you can capture that data?
So we create a social media listening project by first deciding the keywords we're going to use to gather posts. Usually the keywords is the competitive set of brands. So if I go back, I'm using Coca-Cola a lot. I'm not paid by them to do that, but it's the most well-known brand on the planet. Right. So if we were doing a project for Coca-Cola, we would gather posts for Fanta, Mirinda, 7-Up, Pepsi, Dr. Pepper, Sprite. That would be the keywords for gathering. Okay. Then we gather from all the Twitters, the Facebook, Instagram, Reddit, all that, blogs, forums. We bring it in. We clean it from noise because you have homonyms, lots of noise. Right. Coke, for example, if you're gathering for Coke, C-O-K-E, it also means cocaine. Right. And it also means coal that you extract from the earth. So these two homonyms need to be excluded if I'm doing a soft drinks analysis, right? Wow. So there's this first step. We clean the data with AI. We teach the AI how to find the posts that are about cocaine and coal taken out. Then we build a custom model to understand and label for sentiment, positive, negative, neutral, towards the brand in that language, whatever the language is of the posts. Because we decide the keywords, but the language may be Tagalog or Vietnamese or Chinese. And the country might be Philippines or Vietnam or China. You have the ability to focus your gathering in a language and country. And once they are there and the models are prepared, custom models to understand soft drinks in that language and sentiment, and another model to understand soft drinks in that language, but topics of conversation. Then we press a button or it happens automatically. All the posts get labeled in minutes or seconds, even if it's millions of posts. Yep. And then you present them on a dashboard. And then if you're Coca-Cola, you want to see, okay, what is my share of voice, first of all? Right. Out of these million, if I have 200,000 posts about Coca-Cola, then my share of voice is 20%. Am I the highest? Am I the lowest? How do I fare in negative sentiment? Maybe it's not good to have so much because if it's all negative, what then? I mean, is any PR good PR? I don't know. I have to investigate, And so you can drill down. There are dimensions. The dimensions that you use on a dashboard like these are brands, sources, sentiment, topics, and the periods of time. You can look every day, weekly, monthly, whatever. So you may say, okay, let me click on negative sentiment. Okay, now everything is negative. Oh, the share of voice of Coca-Cola is the biggest in negative. Let me click on Coca-Cola. Click. And then it drills down, and then, oh, and what are they talking about? Why are
Right.
they health and wellness? Click.
Yeah.
And then I go and read some of these posts, and I know exactly what. So you go from quantitative analysis to qualitative analysis by reading the actual posts. And you can think of a dashboard like this. I always like to say it's like Google Maps. It takes you from A to B in a foreign city without knowing any, you know, it takes the most efficient way, fastest way in any city. Same idea here. Big data, you're lost, 10 million posts, you don't know where to start. What are they saying? Blah, blah. This is a tool that helps you to go from an A, like negative sentiment, to B, which is, oh, they talk about how unhealthy this substance is.
Fascinating. It's fascinating. And who typically do you sell this solution to within brands? Who's grasping and saying, oh, yes, I need this for sure?
Yeah. So when it's about general market research and marketing objectives, we sell it to the insights people or the brand people.
Okay.
Yeah, market researchers or customer insights. And there's another big use case, which is the customer experience measurement. And that we sell to the customer experience directors or VP of CX. And the angle there is not so much the social media. More important is the calls they get to their call center, the chat messages, the private, and the emails. This is all client data, internal. And we can ingest it into listening 24/7, our platform, along with the social media posts, all annotated with the sentiment and reason for the call and customer journey stage. And then the customer experience director will be able to see every day a ranking of the customer pain points, and they will be able to produce solutions faster so that they can reduce customer churn and maximize retention and loyalty.
Very powerful, especially even on a personal level, when you think about how many times you interact with a bot on a website or call somebody, all that data is actually insight for that brand to be able to digest and do something with it. I have a very, it's a little bit of an oddball question, but what's the hardest language to tag and to make sure there's accuracy?
Yeah, I can understand why you asked this question, but the answer is there isn't one, because they're all the same. Because the method we use is, which is called supervised machine learning. There's supervised, there's unsupervised, and then there's deep learning. Those large language models, the GPT-4s and so on, they are mostly deep learning, neural networks. But supervised means that 4 or 5 native speakers will read through 5 to 20,000 posts in their own language, and they will label them based on their own judgment, their human judgment. Whether if there's, you know, positive, negative, or neutral, and what is the topic, and then we put this together with a machine learning algorithm and create a custom model for that. And so I don't have to speak Chinese. I only need to find 5 Chinese native speakers who can train my model, and then the model runs on its own.
That makes perfect sense.
And there's a very specific, so one of the biggest problems, why I said 80% accuracy at the beginning, why not 100%?
Right.
100% is possible. We can train a model to agree 100% with you if you give us the training data. But the problem is ambiguity. There's ambiguity out there. And so if someone says, you know, this game is sick, young people understand that it means it's great. It's a very good game. But older people like me, 10 years ago, I would have thought it means it's a bad thing. Right?
Yes.
And so if we disagree, and there's 10 to 30% of the times, people disagree about sentiment of a post. And that is why 80% accuracy is a pretty good result, because you can't expect the algorithm to agree with everybody. It has to pick one, you know?
That's why we have opinions and perspectives, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Michalis, thank you so much for joining me today. What a fascinating conversation. I really appreciate you taking the time today.
was a huge pleasure. Thanks for inviting me.
Thank you.